All right, Chairman, I think you have everybody here.
Board of Adjustment meeting to order. So let's just pick it up. Oh, roll call, please.
All right. Board Member Zobel. Here. Board Member Malik.
Here.
Board Member Dragel.
Here.
Board Member Cicero. And Chairman Gerstein.
Here.
The minutes reflect that the five board members are on. We have 3 that are in attendance in person and 2 via video conference.
Carlos, if I can interrupt real quick, if you could remind everyone who's there to use their mics, because it looks like some of the mics aren't on. And so when they were going through roll call, you could still hear them, but it was barely.
All right, and that was my concern. There, the mics here, I think it blew a fuse. So we're using 2 side mics that are between both Mr. Cicero and Mr. Gerstein, and then Mr. Zobel and Mr. Gerstein. So they'll have to talk a little louder if you didn't hear them. And
Yeah.
I can assume you can hear me well. And then I do have a mic for the podium for the presenters. So please let us know, because not just for the purposes of those in attendance, because it's being recorded, it needs to be heard too. So, all right. Okay.
I'll talk.
Thanks,
louder
Rob.
too in it. So Carlos, if you want to just pick us up as to where we were last, and we're not going to go through everything, but we're going to just an overview, and then we're going to hear from the applicant.
Okay, Chairman, and I agree. I will ask to get re-sworn in, and if Ms. Doty can do that on the.
Thank you. Do you swear that the evidence that you shall give the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God.
I do. All right. So this was the presentation slide from the medium from August 12th, I believe, which was interrupted due to a storm where we lost internet connection as we were conducting the meeting. That being said, after discussions with the city attorney, we were told that we did have to repost the meeting, even though there was no one in attendance beyond the board members, the petitioner and his group, and staff. We did post the meeting notice in the St. Louis Countian. It was published 15 days prior to the scheduled date. You have a copy of that affidavit of publication in which it was published on August 25th, 15 days prior to today's scheduled meeting. The petition, the public hearing in itself, the notice was not changed in any form or any way. This was, of course, published a couple of weeks ago in there. We've done virtual meetings and the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We've gone over the procedures. If I don't need to go through that, there is nobody online right now. So it's just the same members of the board who know the process along with the applicant's team and staff. So I won't go through that process or the processes of the variance, but I will note that we did publish a new public hearing to specifically note that it was going to be held today, September 9th, 2021, regarding 724 Cherry Tree Lane. We noted in the public hearing that the initial hearing was interrupted by power and internet loss during the storm of August 12th, and that today's meeting was going to be conducted both in person and via Zoom. And the link would be available on the city's website. And again, there was no changes to the public hearing notice as it was submitted. Now, this was published a couple of weeks ago. I will note that from our August meeting, the first 7 items were entered for the record. I do not need to go through these again unless there's questions from the board. And there, the PowerPoint presentation was provided. The only thing is that we would add an 8th item, which is the new public hearing notice and the affidavit of publication that was published on August 25th, and that notifications were resent. So that is the only additional item, because I think staff, we had went through our full presentation. Just some really quick general, the location, an area of the existing property, some orthos, And again, the standards of this is section 41592A.1, in which the combined square footage of all accessory structures on a lot can't exceed 10% of the lot area. This applies to all single-family residential properties in the city of Olivet. The reason we do it is that the council has adopted that there are standards, they're reasonable, they address stormwater, and they promote public health, safety, convenience, comfort, and general welfare of residents of Olivet. So these are posted, and these are the standards. These are the calculations that have been taken from the previous. Now, we received a table because there was some comments from the board members for the applicant to kind of break down the square footages. We have that done so, and you have that packet, the revised plan on your dais with the information of how the square footages are calculated. And this kind of reflects what was submitted. I'll let the applicant kind of go if there are any specific questions in there, but there was some confusions of how the numbers were all set. We've kind of broke them down, tried to make a little bit more sense of them for the commission.
Carlos, can you go over those again? Just
Sure. The lot area is 8,704 square feet. That being said, the code authorizes up to 10% of the lot area to be utilized for accessory structures, and that's 871 square feet. An accessory structure is any structure, including a pool and its pool footprint, decks, patios, and such that are accessory to the principal use of the home. It doesn't include the house, it doesn't include the driveway, and it doesn't include any specific sidewalks. There's an existing patio behind the house that's 198 square feet or 2.3% of the combined accessory structures. We're not counting the retaining wall, we're not counting the trampoline because it's portable. Proposed, the petitioner proposes a 595 square foot new pool footprint. In addition to that, there would be flat work associated with the pool, a 669 square foot pool deck, a 230 square foot new concrete pad, 40 square feet of new landing, and 22 square feet of steps. That totals to 961 square feet of new flat work and associated with the pool. The flat work by itself represents 11% of the lot area. And again, the cap is 10%. It's already over 1%. You add the pool to that, you're up to 17.8 square feet. 17.8%. And we have no authority to issue a permit because of that access, nor does the planning commission have authority to review something that exceeds the limits of the code or beyond their purview. So that's where we're at on those square footages. Is that there any? Okay. There was findings that were presented. I don't need to go in those specifically, but again, the jurisdiction of the board is to grant relief from strict applications if there's a unique condition on the property that's not created by the owner or the applicant, that the zoning would result in practical difficulties or distinguishes from a mere convenience, which would deprive the owner of reasonable use of the property. The variance would not unreasonably affect adjacent properties, would still observe the spirit and intent of the zoning ordinance, and would satisfy the conditions of the protecting land, air, and such, the strategic plan or a comprehensive plan and things. But again, it is the role of the petitioner to note what is unique about this property, in which the zoning criteria that apply to every other resident or every other property owner in Olivet is unique to this property or is unfair to this property. And that's where we concluded it was going to be the petitioner to kind of discuss the aspects of the pool and the hardship. We started off with the discussion of the table, and then we had that interruption from the storm and concluded. So the petitioners here, again, I think they've addressed the table components very well. And we're here now just to ascertain what is a hardship. And the hardship, again, is a unique condition related to the property. It's not about design. It's not about how the interpretation of the code is set on those. None of those aspects are being challenged. The council has made the decision that you can't exceed 10%. But there's always a process for variances if a property can show that there's unique conditions that are unrelated to or not typically found in other properties in the same zoning district. And really, that's the core of the issues. What's so unique about this property that it warrants to exceed the 10%? And that's what the petitioner and the applicant are here for. I will ask that they be sworn in. They were sworn in already, but just to make sure that we're covered in this process. And then that they speak at the podium. I'll have the, because we are recording this, we do have another camera. So I'm going to switch the camera from the board members to whomever's speaking on there. So I apologize because of the logistics, but it's because we're kind of recording and we have multiple people. It's a little bit more formal than we've usually had. So if that's okay, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Carlos?
And also anybody online, is there any questions from the board members?
All right, having
All
no
right, seeing none.
questions, I'd like just to have you guys both,
Okay.
if you guys want to both go up and be sworn in, you'll have
Okay.
to be sworn in separately. But
So I'm going to ask just for 1 second as I try to switch,
Fine.
figure out how I switch cameras here. So bear with me 1 second. No.
you're both going to be talking, so we might as well get you both sworn in.
It's amazing how far we've come. This facility. All right, bear with me, gentlemen, and I'm gonna get there as quick as possible. Okay, I think that's sufficient. I'll ask those that are board members that are video conferencing. I'm assuming you can see the applicants now, Rob or Omar.
Yes, yes, we can.
All right, Chairman.
Oh. Gentlemen, do you swear that the evidence that you shall give the board in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
All right, so if you just want to go through everything.
Well, the reason why I chose to build a pool of this size is because of the large family that I have. I've got 4 small children, and getting a smaller pool just didn't seem big enough for all of them, and the family and whoever, if they have friends over. So we decided to build a little bit bigger pool. And the reason why there's more concrete work is because my wife wanted to build it further away from the house, because the sun goes from east to west and it would be setting over our house. Therefore, the further we got it from the house, the more sun it would have. That's, I guess, the hardship. We could, if you look at the plans, if we had to, we could take out that middle concrete, the new concrete pad. I think it was 230 square feet. And then that would get the concrete under that 890 square feet if you don't count the pool. So I'm willing to work with the city and try to get this done the way it is. We can just do concrete, like just stepping stones or something. But if the main reason is for the water, I've already got water for stormwater. Carlos, can you put the pictures up? I've already done stormwater in my backyard behind the retaining wall, because we had the issue of the stormwater coming down. So we did what we needed to do to help push it along and to do it. So if the big condition is the stormwater, I think we've already covered that. That's throughout my whole backyard from one side to the other. And it goes into my neighbor who's got the same rock. Well, it's a different rock, but same rock. And he's got, I guess, brush growing through his. I do not. Yeah, there's his brush. So it goes right into his rock pile and his stuff. So we've done the water, the storm water. So it works now. And I've got a good relationship with my neighbors, so if there was a problem, I would work with them to fix it.
Why is your property unique? Just answer the question.
It just slopes down. We had to put the retaining wall in there to give us some sort of level ground. It just slopes down, and it's not really good for much. So a pool was perfect for our family and our small kids. They're gonna be bigger now. So we actually waited a year because my twins just turned 4. And we wanted to make sure they were swimming age, and they're learning to swim now.
What's unique about your lot compared to your neighbor?
I don't know if there's anything unique about it. I don't have any trees, so it makes it easier to put a pool in. A yard's a yard. I don't know what makes one yard unique from another yard. They're all, if you look at the aerial view of the subdivision, they're all square rectangle lots. So,
Do you have anything to add? while you're up there?
No, I know it's code in Olivet, but these percentages are restrictive. We build pools, liquid assets, build pools all over St. Louis, and the 10% seems a little restrictive. We don't really see that in other municipalities. And I know we have to work within the confines of the code of Olivet, but we're just asking for 7.9% more for the hardscape in the yard. And it doesn't seem like it would be that much to ask for.
Could the pool be built with the 10% that is required by the city?
It could be,
it'd just be a very small pool.
like Evan said, with 4 children, they're all gonna have 2 friends over, be a pretty small pool.
Very dangerous.
I have a quick question, Carlos, if I may, and I know this is out of order.
Can you make sure?
Oh, and I know this is out of order, but I'm looking at page 2 of the large handout, and I may shift a question back over to the applicants here. Are they charged with the retaining wall calculations? I'm seeing a number of calculations as to the square feet of the retaining walls.
We did not include the square footages of the retaining wall. And not to say that they're not structures, but it makes the whole process very complicated to try to get down to that detail.
Okay.
Within the code or literal interpretation of the code, it could be considered, but I think, given that generally about 6 inches, they weren't excessive in any form or any way. We didn't include those in the calculations.
Okay, and I just wanted to, that 669 square feet, I just didn't know if that included the retaining walls.
Then I would go back to liquid assets, the designers, and I don't believe that it's included in the 669. And I don't know where it would be typically allocated unless there were boulders or something very sizable.
That's why we redid, since our August meeting, we redid the plan to be a little bit more clear. The previous one, that previous slide, the one you're referring to, has retaining wall square footage and other retaining wall square footages that really are not pertinent. So we tried to clean that up and make it a little more clear
Okay, no, I was seeing if we could
for
find some
for
extra
tonight. Yeah.
room here, but
Yeah, we
turns out-
were told retaining wall square footage doesn't really go against our purview.
Any other questions? Anybody?
No, I sorry, I was trying to get my mute situated, but Carlos, I do have a couple questions for you, and it might be related to the applicant. Would the size of the yard be considered um, a hardship?
No, not from the perspective of how it was determined and how the policy was set. It was based on a percentage to take into consideration that the city has various yard areas in there. So that, a smaller yard would provide a smaller square footage, where a larger yard would provide a larger square footage by going on the basis of percentage.
So if the pool was a garage, if this was a garage, we'd still be looking at the same 10% requirement.
Correct. Mhm. And again, it's the cumulative total of accessory structures and what's defined as accessory structures in our code. That would include the concrete patio, the new concrete patio, the pool deck, and the pool footprint. So it's not, I just want to make sure it's clear as people are referring to the pool square footage. Yes, that's 595, but there are the other square footages that are included in that calculation and are subject to the 10%.
Right. Okay. Okay. That's all the questions I have.
So just to follow up on that, the concrete or the area, the patio or whatever the area around the pool is considered an accessory structure as
Bear with me 1 second, Mr. Miller.
Okay.
Yes, a structure is defined as anything that is permanently embedded into the ground. So like a
Okay.
post, a post for a light structure would be a structure. And then in the code, it defines accessory structures differently. And for accessory structures, it limits that to 10% of the lot area. So what are accessory structures? They're identified in a specific section within our code. In there, it includes like a patio, a deck, a pergola, a shed, outbuilding, which could be a garage, a pool, whether above or below, and it even gets into other types of playground, extensive playground equipment, courts, chicken coops, some type of defined fencing, like for animal control. The city has limitations on how much of that all you can have on one property. Does that address what you were asking?
yeah, it does. So even though it's kind of a flat pool deck, it's not like a post or a pergola or anything like that's really above ground. It's still considered an accessory structure. Okay.
Correct.
Thank you.
But yeah,
I need some help. I mean, I think I'm on a variance point on a property that's unique condition, one not typically found in the same zoning district, with age and width, depth, or shape of the lot, its topography, and other things. Walk me through in what way is this property unique?
I don't know if
Give
it,
a variance, you need these criteria. I struggle.
We're having a hard time hearing on the video.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble getting by step one, which is the property has a unique condition not seen with the other houses in the zoning district. In what way? I don't quite get that.
I
It
guess
doesn't
it's,
seem unique.
it's unique because it's smaller than I guess I wanted to buy. And I didn't realize there was this when we were going to put the pool in. I've seen other pools that are larger than mine and in yards that have smaller, less grass area than mine. So I don't know what they did to get their pools, or what variants, what unique conditions were theirs, but it was unique. It's sloped badly. It's perfect for this size pool, I guess.
I understand your rationale. I'm just having trouble justifying why this is unique in some sense. It doesn't appear to be.
So so if we got it under the 800 or whatever, the 870 square feet by taking out that 230 square foot construction, the new pad, would that be able to make this work? I want to make this work, so how can I make this work?
That's a good segue. I got a couple questions on the flat work. Calculation. So we got new landing 40 square feet. Where's that?
Are you looking at the old one or the new one?
Yeah. There you go. So on the left-hand side of that picture that you can't see right now, but just assume for a second, it says new landing 40 square feet.
Is this right here? Right here? I don't know what that, was that originally gonna be over here? That went away, because yeah, we were gonna put a barbecue pit on the side over there, but we took that away. So,
Okay, so I see new concrete pad that says 60 square feet on the next document. Here. What I want to ensure is we're not double counting some of this. So for instance, if we have a new landing going on an existing concrete patio, if we're putting hardscape on hardscape, are we counting that twice?
That was one of the questions that was discussed.
Well,
at
it's a
that-
question for the steps. Are we counting the steps and then the concrete?
okay,
under
maybe
the
I can,
steps?
there are wood steps there now that are coming down, and they're gonna be new concrete steps that are gonna go there.
Are wood steps counted against
It's
them already?
accessory, yes.
Okay, so we can we're chipping away 18 steps, 18 square feet away from that, because if we have wood steps that are already counted against them and we're replacing with concrete, we're not counting them twice, right?
Correct.
So 18 comes off. And on the 40 square feet, we have, is that 40, is that new landing just replacing something on an existing concrete patio, or is that going in a space that otherwise is occupied by grass today?
Where are you pointing at, the new construction pad, 60 square feet, that's gone. At the top, that's not there anymore. It's not on the new plan.
That's an existing patio.
Okay, because I'm looking at, yeah, to the left hand of that document. We could scroll over just so we all kind of see.
In your numbers, Carlos, I think it may have been double counted.
So you got 40 square feet on the new landing, you got 18 steps. I'm wondering if those are all over this existing concrete patio that you're already being charged with for 198 square feet.
Yeah, I think
You're nodding your head. I'm guessing that's true.
I'm thinking the 40 and the 18 were double counted because they're already there. They're not proposed. In essence, they're wood, we're just changing them to
Mhm.
concrete.
So you're saying that 58 square feet or the 62 square feet
Yeah.
should be,
60, yeah, it
yeah.
should really be 62,
okay.
it looks like. So we're taking that out. We're gonna demo that and re-pour it, basically to make it one nice slab of concrete.
But it'll all fit within the 198 square foot that we're currently looking at.
It all fits within the 198.
And then I recognize, and I'm not here today to necessarily look at, I'm gonna let other people tell me administratively whether we can even do this, but you're saying you're also comfortable taking out the new concrete pad? Correct. The 230? Correct. All right, so now we've eliminated 288 square feet. Right? Correct. Then the question becomes, I mean, even if you're at 669 and 595, I'm kind of doing the math, I think you're at 1462 square feet, which is over your 871, right? So it's about a 1.5 times the legal limit. Have you guys considered the ability to, I mean, in your upper left-hand corner, I don't have a gauge on here. It looks like, you know, that landing area seems, you know, and I understand clean lines are easy, right? You want to go straight across, but if you considered the area where the steps come down as an area where you could shave off some of your concrete footing, concrete pad. You know, I recognize if I want deck chairs, you want to have all the things. That a
Right, we
pool
want to be able to
has.
sit around the pool, so if we have
And
a
I
pool, you can't have a pool without a pool deck.
right. And I guess what I'm looking at is, you know, you're saying, is there a way that we can make this work?
Yes,
And I'm trying to figure out, is there a way to get,
Your numbers in order.
yeah, I mean, because you're 21% of this lot, or 21% is, it's much different than 15%, right? And if the limitation's at 10%, I'm trying to figure out how we get down there. So,
can we get close and just do a variance?
well, and that's part of this process. And we still have our limitations, as my
understand.
colleagues have properly gone over.
But
but-
if, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
but
and I'm
if-
just trying to figure out solution-wise, is there a way
I
that
get-
this shrinks to a point where maybe some of these become a little bit more,
Well, can we find, why was the act originally put in? For the 10%? I have no idea why the 10, is it because of stormwater? Is it
yeah,
because?
I
you know-
think that's a question for,
It's
it's
a,
above my pay grade.
yeah, it has nothing to do, the board members are not policymakers. It was the council adopted for the city of this as a whole, that the combined total of square footages for accessory structures should not exceed 10% per lot. They don't have any say about that. They have to follow it unless there is some unique circumstance on a specific lot that warrants some relief. That's what the role of the board is.
I
And there,
guess you
now-
can't really build a pool then. Pool and a deck for a family. Unless you get some kind of variance. I don't see any way.
I don't either, it's a problem.
Excuse me.
I said, I don't either, that's a problem. We're kind of constrained, but I'll go back to that point one again. We're constrained by this property has a unique condition, one not typically found in the same zone district. And I'm looking for you to give me some answer to that. Really.
I guess I didn't prepare well because I didn't realize that. I thought we were going to be talking about stormwater because they wanted to mitigate, you know, a stormwater mitigation. I didn't realize I had to find out what's wrong with my property, but it's a rectangle property.
I understand that.
And unfortunately, it's small because a lot of the lots in Olivet are small. I guess where we did our tear down.
Did you install the retaining wall?
I did.
Right, and before that, it was,
A slope,
Slope.
straight, you know, it's just a hill that you couldn't do anything. You couldn't,
right, so
you know,
they,
play kick a ball. You could put a
Right, so
trampoline
so-
like we had.
so the topography of your yard
Yes.
was
Restriction.
a restriction. And in order to make it more usable, you
Did what we had to do, just like the stormwater coming into our yard, because there was a bunch of water sitting in the back. I had to do something to alleviate that. So there's problems with the yard.
Forgive me, I actually bought a house with a pool and took it out immediately. What is coupling? What is coupling? A coupling?
A coupling,
Yeah, there's coupling around the pool. What is that? Is that what it's called?
coping.
Coping, I'm sorry, I'm looking at.
Coping's just considered the top of the pool shell, the 12 inches around the concrete pool shell.
Is that required, or is that kind of, is there a way to not have coupling? Is that a requirement for all pools, or can you have pools without coupling?
It has to be some material, and it certainly would be considered an accessory structure.
Okay.
Because it's part of the pool itself, really. It's on top of the pool.
Okay.
So it's
If you-
figured in those numbers. There's no way to really take it out.
One potential way to reduce some of the square footage could be to remove some of the pool deck on the, I guess, the north side and make it more like a rain garden or, some sort of, garden, appearance. But I'm still not sure you're going to get to the numbers that you need.
Well, I mean, we can make it work. We just don't want to. It's too small. What's the point of having a small little pool deck around a small little pool when you got 4 kids? So, yeah, we can make it work, but we're here tonight to discuss making it bigger.
Or making this work. How can we make this work? If it's the stormwater, then I think we're fine. But if it's,
But it's not, I'm sorry, I gotta interrupt because there's a couple of aspects on here. It's not the stormwater. Stormwater is one component in there. And there's a big problem. We all know there's a big problem on Cherry Tree and Harvest. I mean, there isn't a rain that happens that we don't hear about it because of the amount of stormwater. The pool isn't going to be a major component or contributor to there. There was topography issues that existed way before you bought the lot. Everybody's trying to do what they can to try to mediate the stormwater and push it to the rears of the yards, just like you did in there. And it was an area that the city is glad to see that was renovated. There were like these 800 square foot homes
Absolutely.
without, that had no
Slabs.
basement. There were slabs. They were getting flooded. So we knew of that process. The only thing is it happened in infill development. So we had no control to try to coordinate everybody to do something grander because we only could deal with individual houses as they came into play. You've resolved some of your grading issues, but what you did was that you pushed it back into the rear yard, and that's okay. There was nothing wrong with that in there. I get more water now in that back end. It's probably heading south towards there. The whole issue here is the city has established 10% as the rule of the total amount of accessory structures. And in that, it includes the pool footprint in there. I'm way over. I'm like 17, 18% over in there. But this is a small lot. And maybe the city should consider that smaller lots are provided a larger percentage. But that's not your decision to make. It's a council decision to decide. But being that they are here before you for a variance in there, and I don't believe that the lot area is a hardship. That's as close as I can see. I mean, trying to pull on anything that I can right now is at the 10% and the 8,000, I think it's 8,800 or 8,700. They don't amount to much for there. But that was the property that is what you bought. The same applies to the person that has a 20,000 square foot lot.
unfortunately, we didn't know this going in when we bought
Correct.
the lot.
But that, again, that's not, but now it's our fault.
Well,
And-
it doesn't have to be
and-
someone's fault.
And the
It could-
design that was sold to you became our problem because we're telling you, you can't have the permit. So that, so all these things are kind of in range. The issue here is, is 10% a reasonable application to a lot that's under 10,000 square feet, let's say? And if it's not, what is reasonable? The board doesn't have the authority to make that change, but you granted here, I have to take it back to the plan commission, and we need to reassess the code criteria. The worst case scenario is like, if it's granted here, everybody in this subdivision then is allocated that same square footage. All these lots are the same. They're about the same size. So we're saying, forget this 10% rule. We're going to do something different. And the board doesn't have that authority. However, you're here to listen to one individual case, and it's trying to find a happy medium in there that's going to work.
I'm trying.
And to me, as a staff representative, 18% is too much.
I just had a quick question. So we mentioned the lot size and we said it's a small lot. I mean, I feel like that could be a unique circumstance, but I'm also hearing that there are lots in the same subdivision that are like similar. So like what, I mean, could we, like when you say a unique size lot, is it like 5% of lots in all of that are below X amount of square feet and this falls within that, let's say, I'm just making up a number, 5 or 3% or whatever, which would seem to be like unique. I just don't know how, you mentioned the neighborhood and the area, but like, what is that? What are those lots relative to the rest of all of that? And as far as size?
Yeah, and that's where it's hard to answer because one is, yes, these are all at least the lots within this subdivision are all similar in there. So again, if it was granted here and another property came in, even though we're looking at this on a case by case basis, it would be hard to tell them no. And at what point does it stop? It would be just saying that, you know, this regulation is written, doesn't apply, and that's not the board's role. But I think, I mean, again, trying to grab strings for something to try to work here is, you know, the core question is 10% reasonable to a small lot? And what I'm kind of hearing, and the board's trying to help out, and also from the Mr. Trainer and the applicant, and is that that's really hard to work with. That's not much
No.
in there. So can the board consider the lot area as the hardship, even though everybody has the same hardship, and allow for a reasonable increase in the percentage? And then it would be my role then to go back to the council to get this code changed, so everybody then has the same ability that Mr. Training would have on his property. Does that make sense, Omar?
We built an Olivet with you.
Yes, it does.
I've never heard about this 10% restrictive number. Is that something that's new? We've never had to really deal with that before.
The assumption would be that your pools have been under 10%, you know, the improvements.
So the other lots were bigger, I suppose.
I would
We
think
could-
so.
Could handle.
Mhm.
What about the lot on the corner of Ingle and Dealman? You know, it's got a pool on it with a lot of concrete in the backyard.
Correct, and that shouldn't have happened at all. That was before I started in 2002, so I don't know what the code criteria was at that point.
Okay.
But that's a good example of somebody just taking their whole backyard and
So
getting
did
all
they
the
just-
green.
Did they build it without?
No, they had a
permission?
permit, but
They
we
got a
don't know
permit?
what the provisions were at the time.
So you think, so this provision is new after 2002?
Correct.
This new 10% is after 2002,
Correct. Mhm.
but we don't know what made it come about.
Oh, we were having a loss of green space, stormwater issues, and trying to establish standards.
So now we're back to stormwater though.
Mhm.
So.
As one component, yes.
Okay.
But it goes back down, and again, what I hear from the board is that there is some concern that the 10% is too restrictive, especially when applied to a small lot like this. And I think that's a reasonable position for the board to take. How do I make that work? If there is this, what is a reasonable percentage? And it's not the 18%. You know, if you,
I think that the codes were put in place for a reason, and it's our job to enforce them. If we had a lot of these issues coming up on this board repeatedly, and we felt like a change we were putting a hardship onto the residents, then we would have to go to the council and make have them look at it. This is I haven't seen that as, happening. I haven't had anybody coming up with, and this 10% has been in place for quite some time, and we've never had it being an issue.
Quite some time is how long, because it wasn't involved in 2002, so.
Correct.
I've been here.
I would say at least for 3 to 4 years.
So it's been around for 3 to 4 years?
Mhm.
That doesn't seem very long.
I don't.
But that's getting the
I understand.
semantics of what's
But
being said.
bottom line-
Yeah, but it's emotional for me and my family.
Absolutely, but they're not here to consider that. They're
Right.
considering the code of ordinances and how it applies to an individual property, regardless of who owns the property.
And that's something that would have to go to the council, and would have to be pushed on to, for them to make a change for us to be able to grant a variance.
So when does that council meet? I guess.
Well, that is, they meet on we're getting on top of the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month. And at the beginning of the meetings, there's an opportunity for public comment and also towards the end. But going back to here is, but we're here with this application right now, and how do we deal with it? What I hear from the board, which I have to report back to the Plan Commission and the council, is that there's some sentiment that 10% is just too restrictive for some of these smaller lots. Is there some?
No, I think that's accurate. I mean, I'm looking at this
Mhm.
and I'm just trying to double check the numbers.
So what I would recommend is, and before we get into the numbers and all, because then you will get lost in all the semantics, is what is a reasonable percentage for a lot of this size? And I would say it's either 12% or 15%. And where the board considers authorizing that variance of a 12 or 15%, let the designers figure out the design. Let's just say what's reasonable amount of square footage for a lot of this size. If the variance is granted for this lot, regardless, I have to go back to the Plan Commission and the council to get the code changed so that nobody else will have to go through this process. Mr. Trainin, or this property, I shouldn't say the individual, this property would be granted, a variance and a waiver. But and it takes a year to probably change a code. Within a year, I would change the code where it would have been, there would be compliant, but it would keep this process moving for them. Does that make sense? Is it clear?
Yes.
So if the board grants a variance here, then my role is to go back and get that code changed too, while we issue Mr. Trainin his permit, because he's okay, he was granted a variance. But eventually I would change the code, increase the number, where if Mr. Trainin bought the property behind him, the same square footage, applied for a permit, he would know it's 15%, and he wouldn't have to go through this process. I know it's a hard it takes a lot of time, but this gets you moving in there. But then it's my role to make sure that that I catch the next one and make all the code changes so they don't have to go through the process you did.
And how do we pick that number? I mean, it's.
I look at the lot and, I'm thinking 1,200 square feet is reasonable.
That's
But
not our job.
correct. But but if you consider it that if he claims the hardship is he's got a small lot and the 10% is too
Oh,
restrictive.
I fully understand
Mhm.
why it's here. But I'm just saying that back in the first point, we're hung up by these regulations.
Mhm.
You're asking us to do something.
Well, but
If we could grant it if it was a 12.5% versus 17%, which is excessive, and I don't think it would.
the goal in the goal in the end of the day is you're not going to be concerned about what this looks like, but you're going to give me a number to say this is what you're going to, a percentage to be within. And it's
So if we count just the pool, 595, pool deck 669, and the existing patio 198, we're at 16%, which is still outside of the thing.
Right.
And that's it. That's the existing pool, no change.
And what I don't want to get caught up in is on that number, because if these things, I want if a percentage variance is granted, that they're going to submit a revised plan. It may look exactly like this or not, but that they figure out how to get under that get to that percentage. And I don't want to go that we're going to take here off, we're going to take here off. That's not it should not be the board's role. And that's where we'll get in an issue that if I find a number that's like, oh, they forgot to do this, the board didn't know this, and now I have to kind of figure out how to make it work. That puts the onus on the city, and that's not fair.
If you came back at 12.5%, that's what we're looking at. I would be much more comfortable making that type of decision than, because I don't see, I wouldn't make it at 17%. I mean, it's too much of a variance. Grant.
Looking at the picture being the owner, I think if we can get me to 15%, we can move the the pool deck over or closer to the retaining wall, move that down and tighten it up a little bit. And I think that'd be something I could work with very easily. Could we not do that?
I'd like,
Because if you get me to 12.5%,
okay.
I
Do you
don't.
guys, we don't have any more questions for you guys, do we? Does anybody, board member have any other questions for the applicant?
No.
All right, I want to close the public hearing and conduct business as in our private session, not a private session, but if you guys want to have a seat, we're going to talk. Thank you. All right, I want to hear from the board, please, and get your take on it, from everybody. We'll start with the ones that are here.
So I think
Guys, before you start, if you don't mind, if Carlos, if you could change the camera. Sorry about that.
So I think on the uniqueness, you know, the topography, I think, does limit your ability to use a lot. Now, he's already made some renovations to try and utilize the property a little bit better, but having a steep lot and trying to utilize that in a normal fashion, I can appreciate that that's not necessarily conducive to most activities other than perhaps sledding. So I can appreciate that. I also appreciate that this is a smaller lot. I also appreciate that there are plenty of small lots. This whole neighborhood has about the same size lot, and when you purchase a lot, you kind of have an idea of how big the lot is, and that's, you know, the code as it exists when you purchase it, or decide to make an improvement, is what it is, and you have constructive notice of it. I want to figure out how to make this work for him. I do think that we are well over. I mean, the existing plan is doubling up the 10%. So I think for me, you know, you heard me trying to figure out how we can trim this thing down. I don't know that I'm in a position to articulate the difference between 12 and a half, 15, 17. Honestly, I'm not, I think there are various considerations that go into this by people that are planning, that do this for a living, look at stormwater, look at community design, architectural standards, things of that nature. I'd feel much more comfortable if that number that we potentially agree on today is closer to the 10%. So I'm willing to go above 10, given some of the factors associated with this particular property. What that number is, I'm not necessarily sure. I have an indication. So that's where I am right now.
I don't think I'm qualified. I think just echoing the point that was just made, I'm not qualified to say what is a good percentage and what isn't a good percentage. That's not my job on this committee, especially. And I think we're being asked to do something we can't do fundamentally. And I think inherently we cannot satisfy the criteria we need for a variance. And I don't think it's just arbitrary for us to come up with a different number that would be better. I can't see how we could do that.
All right, thank you. Let's, Omar.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, I don't know, I don't believe that it's in the scope of our authority to talk about percentages here. I mean, we're really just talking about application of the code and trying to find a unique circumstance, but there really isn't. And the petitioner hasn't really came thinking this was about stormwater for some reason. But I mean, whatever the case may be, I just don't see that there's sufficient, like, you know, factual evidence here to, when applied to the code, to grant a variance. So it would have to be some kind of a and I don't know if we as a zoning board can, ask for like a recommendation to the city that this maybe be explored, some kind of exploration around, what would be an appropriate lot size, but maybe we could maybe make that recommendation, but I don't think we have enough to grant a variance.
Robert?
Um, the small size, I could get on board with that being an unusual condition, for all of it, because, when this standard was put in place, I think everybody's kind of thinking of what's the standard lot size in Olivet, and that's kind of how we kind of, how they came up with those numbers, so I don't think they were necessarily looking at each individual lot and looking, okay, at the smallest lot in Olivet, this is what's, what that number's going to be, and is that okay? So I do think there is potential. It'd be nice to know if it was within the, the smallest 5% of lots, that would be helpful. As far as, if this, would justify, how much more would you go, or how much percentage wise? It would be kind of interesting to see if you looked at kind of different medians of lots, what does that count as in terms of a total square footage, from the various things. So it almost like, to really get an accurate number, to do some homework or do some, things to help, justify a certain number. If I was just, kind of push came to shove, I think I think I could see somewhere 12 and a half at the, I would definitely be fine with 12 and a half. I could probably even go up to a little bit under 50, I wouldn't go more than 15. So I'd be kind of, be in that range, so to speak.
Okay.
One thing I was kind of thinking about, to the point that was just made, I think I'm there as well, and I'm almost wondering whether the applicant would move for getting the pool in with the pool deck now, losing his existing patio, losing the concrete pad, waiting for the code to change, and then being able to add those additional points later as a method, because the concrete pool and the pad around it is 14%. So there's, that's how we can start dropping things down. But again, we may be getting too far into some of the details if we're being asked to get to, is there just a standard number that we're going to feel comfortable with? Again, just trying to identify some possibilities here.
All right, so I think that we're here to enforce the code. The code is 10%. It was put there for a reason, and that's what our job is to do. And it is hard to just arbitrarily come up with a percent. I think what they're asking for is too much for us to grant. It's too much of a variance. If it was 2.5% more, because it is a small lot, it would be something, yes, that I think I would grant that variance, but that would be the most that I would go, because we really are here to enforce the codes. Carlos, if we deny, we don't grant this variance because we're sticking with the 10%. Can they come back with a smaller size, hopefully 12%? And are you able to grant that? I mean, to pass that, or does it have to come back to us, or it can't come back to us?
It would come back to the board. 10% is the maximum that's permitted before I can run it to the
Okay.
commission.
But could we just come up with a number today and say that they can have that percent?
And that's where my intent was to direct the board to consider that as we go and try to change the code, then hopefully,
Carlos, is
Yes.
it possible to seek direction from PCDC? To say, hey, the board is considering this and seek their input on that?
my first question would be on this specific application or on the text, the amending the code.
This specific,
Well,
variation request.
why would we do, I mean, if we would have to, if you're doing, well, then I guess all of them are based, for each individual person, it's always different, but if this issue would continue to come up like we've had in the past, then it needs, well, I don't know if it would be PCDC, it would be the council, so. I don't know if we've had that, again, this is the first time this has come up, so. I don't think it's that big of an issue because we haven't had a lot, like the corner lots, we used to have that all the time. We were seeing them every month, we had them coming up, and it was something that we had to go to the council. And they did make the change, but I think we can just decide if either we're gonna say no, keep with the 10%, or we'll give you 2.5% more and redesign it.
Procedurally, do we just have? Procedurally, I mean, do we just have to say, here's a number and we all internally vote on it?
Yes.
Or do we just say no?
Or either one.
Or a different number? We all could have different numbers.
Right, exactly. It just has to be a vote. It has to be 4-1.
It would be a motion that would have to be made to, if we do authorize the variance, then you'd have to say what the variance would allow
Exactly.
up to. And then you'd have to approve that, and then you can vote on that one.
All right.
Or in a second, yeah.
I'm doing that.
Yeah, so I don't know how that's gonna do us any good if the petitioner is not workable to do 12 and a half, I mean,
Well, they could do.
I mean,
10.
gives them a tiny deck. I mean, I don't know that they're gonna even want that, so. I mean, it's something, I guess, but practically speaking, I don't think they're gonna go for it. They're probably gonna end up going for or asking that the code be changed anyway. Unless they spend the time without the deck and just build a pool. I don't know, is that a safety hazard? Can you have a pool without kind of a deck around it? I don't know what if we have any pool guidelines for pools and all of that, but do you have to have a minimum amount of deck around a pool?
I don't know.
There's
I've seen-
anything, I don't believe there's anything required within the pool code that requires that deck, because it takes into consideration too, some of these above ground pools that would just have
Okay.
that perimeter.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And there are a lot of pools in Olivet, and they've all met the code when they, so it can be done. It's just gonna be smaller.
All right.
So what can they do then if we grant the variance for 12 and a half and they want to have a bigger deck? Like, what is their recourse then if they want it to be 15%? Like, do they have any options to like petition the council, or, I mean, what's the process for them? Then they could certainly pursue that, but that's something we could at least advise them on as part of the process. They wanted a bigger deck. What would they need to do to, make that happen, or at least, submit some kind of do we recommend to the council then that they consider, can we recommend to the council that they explore going beyond the 12.5%, but just saying that, we're comfortable with 12.5%, we just leave it at that? And then the council decides if they want to go above 12.5, and then they deal with the petitioner, or how does that work?
Carlos, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, to the extent that we grant a variance and enter a determination that they are unhappy with, they could seek judicial review of our decision, or they could go to the council and seek a code change. Those would be two manners of recourse, either change the law or take an appeal of our decision.
We put stuff in front of the council and they have made changes in the past. It's not a quick fix.
Yeah.
But we have done it in the past.
I'm just gonna move for a number. I'm not sure how to formulate this, but I've come up with a number of 13.75, which is meeting in the middle of 12.5 and 15%. So that's the number I'm comfortable with today. And to the extent that they can make their changes to their design to fit it within there, that's what I feel comfortable with. I think that we can find unique circumstances. We can find the statutory authority under the ordinances to find that this is a unique property and a particular hardship. I don't think that we can find a hardship up to 21%.
I think that is more than gracious. It's more than I would do, but let's put it to a vote then. And we need a motion. Let's see. Drum roll, please.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out the way to move for this.
On the display, you would have the recommended motion to grant as it was submitted by the applicant. What you would do would replace based on Mr. Zobel's comments, the 7.9 would be 3.75 for a total of structures not to exceed 13.75 in there. And then I would not put the square footages of the pool or the deck or hardscape, because I think you restrict the applicant in there too much. I would just leave it at those percentages, reference the property, and not even include the date. And I can't edit this on here, or else I will.
I'll and with the notation before I make this motion, that I sincerely hope that we can communicate this instance to the council and hope to address this for future property owners facing this particular situation, including this property owner, to the extent he chooses not to exercise his rights under the potential variance to the extent it is granted. I do think that we need to bring this up to the council at the next earliest opportunity to see if the existing ordinance is creating an undue hardship on our residents of Walden. And with that said, I move to grant a 3.75% variance to permit a combined area of all accessory structures to total 13.75% of the lot area of the property addressed as 724 Cherry Tree Lane to permit the construction of a pool and hardscapes.
Period.
Do I have a second?
Second it.
Thank you. Carlos, would you like to?
Yes, 1 second, Chairman. I need to make sure that everybody's visible. On the motion, Board Member Zobel,
Yes.
Board Member Malik,
Yes.
Board Member Jergel,
Yes.
Board Member Cicero, and Chairman Gerstein.
say yes and grant the variance.
The motion passes. So what's been authorized is for again, the combined total of accessory structures not to exceed 13.75. And then it would be up to the petitioner to provide the redesign, I'll use that term, and the justifications. In addition to that, staff's been instructed to bring this matter of the restrictive, the 10% being restrictive to smaller lots, both to the council, and we'll also bring that to the Planning and Community Design Commission. So the next steps would be, once we receive the revisions and we can ascertain that they don't exceed 13.75, the petition still has to go to the city's plan commission for its design review. In there.
Carlos, is there, if they were to have a green, sometimes they're called greenscapes, where it allows water to flow through patios, is that still considered an accessory structure? Can we get them kind of a patio that still doesn't necessarily qualify as an accessory structure? Someone that put a grill, put a chair, but it doesn't technically meet the accessory structure?
They are still considered structures, and they are accessory, so they still fall under. I do believe or see that should be considered as an avenue to, if the goal is for stormwater control and maintain green space. It's not just about the stormwater control, but they go hand in hand. That allowing or authorizing for some permeable alternatives as a means to exceed a percentage should be
And what
considered.
if they, on this pool deck, they incorporated planters somehow? With planters that have dirt, that have vegetation in them, does that still constitute an accessory structure, or because it's?
We've seen it in terms of where let's say the pool deck itself, there are pockets that are not filled and plantings are placed in them. Now, if somebody were to put like a pot as a planter, that's why I'm not sure that you're talking about, that has not been counted as, that would not reduce the amount. I guess is what I'm saying. And not to say that whether it's fair or not, it's just under the code, it wouldn't fall under as something to permit a reduction.
Conceptually, if we're looking at this pool deck and we could incorporate areas that are not planters, but actually they're just earth areas, that we could lose some of the concrete that constitutes it.
And the way the code is set, just so the commission, the Planning and Community Design Commission has some authority to allow some variations in this. They're that design review board, and the code specifically sets restriction, like a pool can't exceed 400 square feet unless the Plan Commission authorizes it to do so. And in doing so, the commission takes into consideration, how can we mediate some of those issues? In addition to that, a fine line was drawn that at 10%, that at that point, the commission shouldn't have any more additional authority to go beyond that. And it becomes a board of adjustment issue, or it's just that the community chose 10%, that's the maximum.
All right, we hear from about old business, anything else we need?
Not at this point, unless there's any specific questions. Right.
We end it, or we?
Yes, you'll conclude the meeting at 7:20 p.m.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.